Well, welcome once again to the L&D Ninja podcast. I am your host, Reggie Bedine, and thank you so much for joining me on this very condensed podcast that I haven't been able to do for the last couple of weeks. As you probably saw on my LinkedIn page, I recently lost my dad, which was a very, very tough situation to go through. My dad was my hero, the person I looked up to, and so it was quite difficult. So for the last couple of weeks, I've been dealing with that. Thankfully, I was able to be up there with him before him passing, and so that was a very good time and a blessed time. Not a lot of people get to experience that. And then of course I was up there with my mom, taking care of a lot of things. Being the oldest in the family, a lot of that responsibility falls on me, and I'm glad that I'm able to be there for my family. But I gotta tell you this: I missed connecting with you for the last couple of weeks. It's been very difficult to do everything at once, and so I had to focus on what I needed to focus during that time. And my goal is to be able to come back and meet with you on an ongoing basis. I have some very good guests, very, very interesting guests that are lined up for the upcoming weeks and upcoming months. And so stay tuned. I think it's gonna be a good content for all of you. And all I really want to say today is thank you so much. There's so many of you who reached out to me with words of encouragement and condolences, and that meant a lot. It means a lot when you're going through that. You know that you are not alone, that you have a community that you can rely upon, and certainly it was the case for me. I didn't feel alone throughout this whole process. I felt like my community, both my family, my extended family, friends, and my now L&D Ninja community, LinkedIn community, my Instagram community, they were all there, and I cannot thank you enough for your well wishes, your thoughts, your prayers. They meant a lot to me during that very, very difficult time. And so, I thought that probably the as I get back into the podcast, I wanted to just, maybe think out loud and honor some of the lessons that I learned from my father. And those lessons they have contributed a lot to the person that I am today. And so I want to share, maybe some of those lessons that I think are very, very important for L&D professionals, but for leaders and I think for humans as a whole to keep in mind and to really apply to their own lives. We live in very difficult times. There's so much turmoil, both economically, politically, just across the board. Just things seem to be a little negative nowadays, and there's some lessons that I learned from my dad that really made an impression on me. And I think that they're great lessons that if more people apply to their lives, things would be better. And I'm not trying to be, I'm an optimistic person, but I know that you also have to live in reality. But I also think that if some of these lessons are applied by more people, I really believe that the world would be a better place. And so I'm going to share a couple of these. I'm not going to expound too much on them. Just I'm speaking from my heart, and just sharing with you some of the lessons that I learned from my dad. One of the things that I'm a stickler on is being on time. Now I'm Latino, I'm Hispanic, and I know that there's a stereotype of Hispanics, being late. That wasn't the case in my household. My dad was in the military. He served in the Vietnam era, and which was, he his send off was was majestic. He was, his burial was with all the pomp and circumstance of a veteran, and I am so grateful for that. It was just beautiful. But maybe because of that, my dad was very militaristic when it came to time, and valuing time, not only in not wasting time and being on time for one's sake, but more so for the other person. And that was not only just showing up on time, but completing tasks on time, completing projects on time, being mindful of other people, being respectful of other people's time. And it's one of the lessons that I've learned from my father. Not to say that you slip here and there, right? But I've always made it a point to be on time, even ahead of time, and not keeping people, you know, with for more time that we've allotted for that conversation, for that meeting, for the training. Be very, very respectful of other people's time, just because you're in doing so, you're communicating that you do care about that individual, that that person um is important, and their time is important. And so, that's one of the lessons that my dad just drilled into me. And a lot of the projects that I do, I always, if there's a timeline, let's say, this date is a timeline. My timeline is, 10 days, 7 days, 2 weeks before the timeline, right? Because I know that life happens, and sometimes, things do happen, and and I just want to make sure that I always hit the target. Same thing with goals. When I'm setting up goals, whether it's for work or personal goals, I always, I may have a date, circled on the calendar, but I know that for me, that deadline is going to be 2 weeks, 7 days, 10 days before the schedule, before, that circle date there. And the nice thing about it is that you're certain to complete that on time. But then you don't live under that stress of, oh my goodness, am I going to be able to meet the time? Am I going to be able to complete this with enough time? And so I learned that from my dad. My dad just, again, maybe it was his military background, but he was an early riser. I learned that from him as well, and how to be there on time, actually ahead of time, do a great job before time, ahead of time, and that gives you the opportunity to change some things or make things even better. And so that's the one thing that I learned from my dad. I think another lesson that I learned from my dad is to be kind. I told you that my dad was in the military, and there's a stereotype of people that are in the military as being harsh. My dad is probably the one of the sweetest, kindest person that I've ever met, and he certainly, I felt, looking at him, I felt that some people, will probably, took advantage of him, because of his kind heart. I mean, I would tell him, I would challenge my dad, Dad, they're taking advantage of you. And so, but my dad always had you know, gave a lot of his money away, gave a lot of his time away. He was not greedy with either one. He really had a very, very kind heart, especially to those who were less fortunate than he was. And you know, I think that kindness was infectious. The way he treated people, you never felt, and this is something that I've heard over and over again. Certainly, it was the case, for me and my family. That when Dad was addressing you, it was all there, right? He was not all over the place. You felt like you were the only person who existed. You were the center of attention, and so I've heard so many stories. Right before coming back home, I had to do drop something in the post office, and the gentleman behind the counter saw the last name. My dad had used that post office for 20 years, 20 plus years. And so he saw the name and says, are you related to Ramon Padin? And I said, yeah, he was my dad. And he said, sorry about for your loss. We have all been impacted and made better. Kind people like that do not just come around. And he made us better. And in our experience working here, every time he came in, um, was better because he was here. And I thought, my goodness, that is definitely something that I've heard over and over again throughout the years of my dad, his kind heart, putting other people ahead of him sometimes, even if the other party did not have good intentions. My dad didn't care. I mean, he just did it, and he felt that his reward would be an eternal, everlasting one, not in the immediate in this immediate life. And you know you don't have to be spiritual or religious. I'm not saying that you need to, but even if that other spiritual reality did not exist, just the fact of how many people have been impacted in this lifetime because of his kindness speaks volumes. And so, I that's a lesson that I learned from my dad. Number one, be on time and do things well ahead of time, and then be kind. And probably the last lesson I learned from my dad. My dad had he was very devout when he was in the military. The only reason he was not in the military longer is because he got injured, and so he was not able to have a long military career. But he gave it his all. And it's funny and interesting that kind of devotion gets rewarded. And my dad was not big on stating every reward that he got. But as I was going through all his paperwork, just because we needed to file some things, right? I found his discharge papers from the military, and I noticed that he had been awarded several awards during his very short stint. I think he was in the military for about 2 3 years, and in that short stint, he was awarded many. He was recognized many times. And I did some research on some of those awards that he got and those medals that he got, and a lot of time and effort went into that. Yet my dad was, he was not all about just showing off his awards. It was about his dedication to his craft, right? And so he was totally devoted to it. After the military, my dad became part of the security personnel for a big name politician in Puerto Rico, and he gave it his all. I mean, very very respected in those circles as a man of integrity, of courage. Again, very very decisive, and the way just he carried himself spoke volumes. But it was just big dedication to that. And then he became a Christian, and after that he became a minister in the Christian faith, and he was completely devoted to that, completely devoted to his ministry, completely devoted to his call. And he was just passionate about what he did, and so many people were touched by his ministry. And again, we live in a world that sometimes you hear just bad things about religion and religious people. I can tell you this much, that one of the reasons why I had so much respect for my father is because the person that people saw in the pulpit or on Sundays or out in public was the same person that he was behind closed doors when nobody was around and nobody was looking, and even when he thought that not even his family could see. And that is called integrity. And so I learned to from my father to just be passionate about your call, about what you do, and to do things with integrity. And again, having integrity is what you see out in public is the same person that you are in private, right? And that you act the same way when nobody is looking around and when you don't have an audience. And so these are lessons that um, are conveyed at times without even speaking a word, right? I mean, if you think about it, the whole deal of respecting time, your own time and other people's time, you don't have to say anything about it, right? You just act. Being kind, sometimes you don't have to say anything about it. Just you just have to act on it. And having a passion for your craft, for your life call, and having the integrity doesn't take words to really show that to other people. It's through actions. And I'm so thankful that I had a father like the Reverend Ramon Padin, who was there to really support me, and he was there to support his family. But it was through those non-spoken lessons of his life. It was those non-spoken lessons of his life that have had such a great impact on my own life. And I just hope that I'm able to be that type of servant leader and servant trainer, learning and development professional to the people that I come across. And of course, it's the legacy that I want to leave my children, my four children. It's a legacy that I want to leave the people that I love and care the most for. So again, thank you for indulging me during this time. I really felt like I needed to I needed to reach out and just check in with all of you. I haven't gone anywhere. I promise you we will be back doing the podcast pretty soon. I have a couple of plans for the upcoming weeks, especially this was year one of launching Expand TMS, which is the talent management system that I designed, and I'm going to give you a rundown as to how my first year went. For all of those who are entrepreneurs and thinking about maybe in 2023 doing something bold and something to live out their vision. I'm going to have something towards the end of the year, probably the last podcast of the year. um but there's other things that are coming, so stay tuned. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know that this was not a very long one, but you know what, it doesn't they don't have to be long every single time. Hopefully you gain from it, and again, just thank you so much for your kind words. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you soon. Okay, take care. Bye.